It's a story like many other fighter stories, or everybody that lives on the planet Earth. It's multi-dimensional, and where I got to the Golden Gloves and how I got involved in boxing, I think is somewhat unique. It had nothing to do with fighting, because I was a little red-headed, freckle-faced kid getting my ass kicked all the time. I almost had drowned at the lake one day, and my sister, who saved me from going to the beach without permission, told my father that there's a swimming pool at a boys club in the neighborhood we just moved into, not far from here, near Grand and Damon. And she goes, well, just send them to the boys club and teach them how to swim. Well, going to the boys club, and going there, you filled out your application, so, you paid your dues, which was like 15 to 25 cents at the time, and you had to direct it to the library. Within the library, the first 15, 20 minutes you read a book, and then afterwards the librarian taught you the game of chess. So when being inquisitive, she would say to the young people, what are your interests? And so I watched boxing with my father on television, and I like, adventure. She was okay. Well, I'm going to teach you the game of chess, and chess is a lot like boxing. The pawn is like a jab. You put it out there to see what the other man's going to do. The right hand is like the queen. And you put that out there, but you don't want to leave it out there too long because they can take it away. The king is like your chin. You want to protect it at all times so they don't knock you out. So I found it fascinating. So now, coming from that time in the 50s, late 50s, early 60s, I always wanted to be a drummer or a dancer. Upstairs from the boys' club on the 3rd floor was a boxing room. And I seen guys skip and roll. Pop, 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 pop. It looked like beautiful dancing. And hitting the speed bag like a drummer. I said, man, it looks so cool. I want to learn how to do that. I didn't want to fight because I was a little scaredy cat. So I went into the boxing room. I asked the man I wanted to learn to do these particular things. He says, okay. He says, but first we got to teach you the fundamentals. He said, we're going to put you in the mirror. He says, the jab is like a pawn. I said, boy, that sounds familiar. He says, the right hand is like the queen. It's very powerful, but you don't want to leave it out there. He said, your chin is like the king. You want to protect it at all times. I said, are you married to the lady downstairs? And that's how I got into boxing. Now, learning the basics and the fundamentals of boxing, and although I was somewhat of a frightened child, I had what they call fight or fight. My fight was stronger than my fight as far as my genes are concerned. So whenever kids picked on me because I was a red-headed, freckle-faced kid, I would just hit him with a good right hand that the coach taught me, boom, and I'd hit him and knock him out. I'd get in a lot of trouble in school. So that led to my involvement in just learning the basics and the fundamentals of boxing. As I got older, I got married at a very young age. And then when I got married at a very young age, I was like 18, just turning 19, and my wife was 17, just turning 18 when I fathered my first child. She was my love of my life. I met her when I was 13 years old. She was Puerto Rican, I was Italian. It was a typical West Side Story type of deal. I was fighting with the Puerto Ricans all the time to go visit her. But compiling and being thrown out of the 5 schools that I was in by the time I was in 8th grade, my job potentials was slim and none. Coming from the neighborhood not far from here, it was known for some of the top burglars in the world. So that's the kind of lifestyle I fell into. My idols and my role models were Pops and Peanuts Panza, who were some of the most famous Chicago burglars in the world, and Tony Scalise, who nailed the crown jewels of London. And that's a true story. Tony passed away some years ago, and he never found the jewels, so evidently they were broken up into be able to sold. But those were my role models. Also because of the area being an Italian-American neighborhood, some of the most famous organized crime figures came from the neighborhood, so these were the people I had to look up to. Getting in trouble from the ages of from 12, 13 years of age up until I was in my early 20s, like 20, 21 years of age, being married at that time and trying to survive for my family. The only way I knew how was being a burglar. Well, getting caught in 2 burglaries back to back and facing a long time in jail, my attorney, who was an advocate for alternative sentencing, just liked me for some reason. He sold the judge on a concept. Knowing that I was a fighter and always was fighting with the Puerto Ricans, they offered me a deal. If I won the Golden Gloves, I'd have a chance to not go in jail so long. So I started to go to a gym and I started to train vigorously in hopes not to go to jail for the 14 and 20 years they were offering me, and hopefully just to get 2 or 3 years. Well, at this time, the work release program was just an intent, and in the work release program, you were able to go out every day from jail to go to work, and you'd come home later in the evening and spend your nights in jail. They were going to allow me to go out and train for my boxing matches and be in tournaments, and the little twist was, if I was involved in a boxing tournament, I wouldn't have to go into jail every night. I'd be able to stay out and live at home to be able to train for my tournaments. Well, I entered every tournament in the country. So out of a 2.5 to 3 year sentence, I might have spent 2 weeks in jail, which was good thinking on my part. I ended up going into the Golden Gloves, and I won the Golden Gloves. And after the Golden Gloves, I stood amateur for another year or so, winning the state champions, international amateur championships. But there was no money to be made here in Chicago, and I had a wife who got hooked on drugs, heroin, and I wanted to become the custodial parent for my daughter. Knowing of my background and going into file for custody of my daughter, I was worried about not only would my wife get custody, but if the courts would see fit that we were both not good parents, that they might take my daughter away and become a ward of the state, which is even more of a deeper hell than being with one or the other parent who loves them. So I said, well, I have to change my life. I have to change what I had done. I have to make a good name for myself and put a good resume together as far as how my repertoire of my personality has developed into a positive person to come to court to file for custody for my daughter. Hence, I moved to Las Vegas and I became a professional fighter. I was, as a professional fighter, usually professionals in my weight class, which was 135 pounds, which was a lightweight, everybody turns pro at an earlier age. And if you're going to make money to be able to support a family, only if you're a 10-round fighter and a marquee fighter are you able to make that kind of money. So what I did was demanded of my trainers and managers that they threw me into the wolves immediately, put me with top-rated fighters. After my 3rd or 4th fight, which is unheard of in boxing, I already started to fight main events in 10-round bouts, because the protocol usually was you fought 4-round fights, bouts, 6-round bouts, 8-round bouts, and then you go into the 10-round bouts, and then maybe after a handful of 10-round bouts, you become a main event fighter, which is the star of the show. I was able to jumpstart that because I got an opportunity after my 15th or 16th fight to go to Honolulu, Hawaii to fight the Hawaiian Punch. The Hawaiian Punch, his name was Andy Gannigan, who was the ring lightweight champion. I was a 15-1 underdog, and I was in need of money, so we bet our purse. My manager bet his portion of the purse. I bet my portion of the purse. My trainer bet his portion of the purse on me to win by knockout. Well, after being knocked down 2 or 3 times in a fight and being a stubborn dago, I couldn't take it anymore, and I got lucky with a punch and knocked out the champion and became the ring lightweight champion. Yeah. And if it wasn't for the lessons of commitment, hard work, and sacrifice that I learned through boxing in the Golden Gloves and becoming a professional fighter, and there was a lot of other factors, with the man upstairs looking down upon me, I wouldn't be able to be here to talk to you tonight. And thank you everybody.